On March 31st, 1922, Maria Baumgartner arrived at a family farm within the then German village of Wangren. 6 months earlier, the former maid quit out of fear of the farm being haunted, leaving the family of 5 to look for a new maid. In the time between, the family reported hearing footsteps in the attic, newspapers that they had not bought, and discovered tracks in the fresh snow. But on March 31st, 1922, it would be the last anyone would see of Maria Baumgartner and the Gruber family. For little did Maria know, she had just taken a job at Hinterkaifeck and her fate had been sealed. The Gruber family consisted of 5 members. Andreas Gruber, who was 63 and the head of the household. His wife Cecilia Gruber, who was older than him at age 72. Their daughter Victoria Gabriel, a 35-year-old who was widowed when her husband was killed in World War I. She had a daughter named Cecilia, who was 7. And a son named Josef, who was 2 years old. Who Josef's father was is unknown, as Victoria's husband was killed in France in 1914. All 5, plus Maria, lived at the Hinterkaifeck farm, which was built in 1863. Six months before March 31st, 1922, the maid quit after hearing strange noises and footsteps in the middle of the night. She felt as though the place was haunted and feared staying there any longer. Soon, Andreas Gruber found a newspaper that he hadn't bought, thinking it was the postman who left it. He shrugged it off. He also found strange tracks in the snow that led from the forest to a broken door lock in the farm's machine room. The same night he saw the footsteps, he heard them above him in the attic. He went to investigate, but found nothing. Maria arrived on March 31st, 1922, escorted by her sister. Her sister stayed briefly, being possibly the last person to see the family alive. On April 1st, coffee sellers arrived at the farm, but no one was there. They knocked and looked in windows, yet no soul was seen. For the next few days, the younger Cecilia was absent from school. The family missed Sunday worship at their church. On April 4th, an assembler came to the farm to repair the engine of the food chopper. He was met with the same eerie silence. That same day, Lorenz Schlittenbauer sent his 16-year-old son and his stepson to the farm to see if they could make contact with the Gruber family. When they returned to tell him that there was no one there, he went to look for himself. What he would find was horror. Lorenz would be accompanied by Michael Pohl and Jacob Sigel to the farm. After searching, they entered the barn where they found Andreas, his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter in the barn. Andreas' grandson would be found in his crib. Poor Maria was found in the house. They had their skulls bashed in with a mattock that belonged to them. They had been dead since March 31st. But more disturbing was the cows were fed, food had been eaten. For 3 days, the killer lived in the house, then simply vanished. Police investigated the scene, but the crime scene wasn't really taken care of. The people who discovered them tainted the crime scene as well as others who came and went. Some moved bodies and even cooked in the kitchen. They were able to ship the bodies to Munich for autopsy, but at first they thought it was a simple robbery gone wrong. So they interrogated craftsmen, drifters, and others who could possibly have a motive. They abandoned the theory when they came across evidence that somebody had been staying in the house. The investigation was a mess. They missed another key detail. An artisan passing by the night after the murder but before the bodies were found observed smoke from the fireplace and signs that the oven was on. Then he was blinded by a lantern by somebody who confronted him. He would leave, not wanting trouble. Another key detail they missed was a butcher passed by the home at 3 a.m. on April 1st and observed 2 people on the edge of the forest. When the 2 figures saw him, they turned their faces so they couldn't be seen. There are many theories on who killed the 6 people. Lorenz Schlittenbauer was one of the suspects. He had a key to the home, and before the murders, a key had gone missing in the house. He also moved bodies, which hampered the investigation. But the theory gets more interesting. It is believed that Lorenz was Victoria's lover and the father of Josef. He had the key because Victoria gave it to him. According to the 2 who joined him after the initial search, he went into the home alone because he said he needed to find his son Josef. He remained a suspect in the eyes of the people who lived around him for some time after. He had strange comments that were seen as indicating knowledge he shouldn't have, but he wasn't the only suspect. A couple of brothers named Adolf and Anton Gump were thought to have committed the crime, but this is mostly due to their sister's deathbed confession, and both were never seriously charged. Two other pair of brothers were named as suspects by a woman in a letter, claiming at age 12 that her uncles, only known as Carl S. and Andreas X, were the killers, stating her mother had a conversation with them where Andreas regretted losing a penknife. When the farm was demolished in 1923, a pocket knife that no one had ever seen before was found, but it was likely that it was one of the Gruber family's knives. Burglars, the Thaler brothers, were also suspected, mostly because the former maid claimed that they came by her window and had a conversation. Peter Weber was suspected due to him talking about killing Andreas Gruber and stealing his money. Paul Mueller was a killer and a German immigrant to the U.S., and his crimes in the U.S. mirrored the Hinterkaifeck crime. He was suspected of the murder of a Massachusetts family in 1897. Bill James wrote a book called The Man from the Train. In it, he links Mueller to a bunch of murders in the United States in the early 1900s. He theorizes that Mueller snuck back into Germany after a murder in Colorado in 1912. Now I saved the best for last, the most interesting of theories. Carl Gabriel, Victoria's late husband, though he was said to have died in France, his body was never recovered. After the murders, people began to wonder if he survived and made his way home. Victoria gave birth to Josef, having an illegitimate child, a child who might be Lorenz's, as speculated, or an incestuous relationship with her own father. Either way, the theory states Carl was driven mad and killed his family and disappeared. But those are the suspects. I'll leave it up to you to decide who you think it is. This story is the perfect horror story. Terrifying happenings around a farm, no answer to what is happening, then death. But we need to remember that children died too, those who didn't deserve such a violent death. But the mystery of what happened on March 31st, 1922 has fascinated true crime enthusiasts and armchair sleuths for decades and remains one of Germany's infamous unsolved crimes.